Good evening, everyone, from beautiful Savannah. I'm here once again to read to you real ghost stories told to you by a real human and not AI. Let's begin. I think my dog is haunting me. My 14-year-old dog passed away suddenly Thursday night. I raised him since he was a puppy. He followed me around like a shadow his entire life. I know everyone says this, but he genuinely was my best friend. I've been staying at my parents' for a little over a month, and he and I have spent a lot of time here in the past. Without getting into any details, that are still very traumatic for me, he died here in the house. Like I said, it was very unexpected, and he declined quickly. Literally 24 hours before he passed, he was playing, wagging his tail, and being his normal cuddly self. With this, the shift in energy of the house has been stark. To go from a house with an active, playful dog to one without, well, it's palpable. It was like there was this constant hum or white noise that was suddenly gone. Last night, I first noticed something next to my bed where he'd sleep, out of the corner of my eye. The bed is raised, so when he'd stand up, I could only see the top of his head and the tip of his tail trotting around for a good night pet, or to see if I was awake in the mornings. But I swear, last night as I stared straight ahead, praying for sleep, I saw something move. I'd been crying all day, and thought maybe there was crap in my eyes from wiping them so much. Still possible. But my mum told me tonight that she's been seeing things out of the corner of her eye too. My bedroom is around the corner and down a hallway, and she's been seeing perpetual movement back and forth, the route that he would take to my bedroom. And then my dad, without my mum and I discussing what we saw, sat down for dinner at the coffee table like he's done every night for the past month that we've been here, and every night when my dog was alive, and he'd trot over to my dad's side and lay there while he ate. Tonight my dad sat down and was like, Is there a door open? And my mum and I both said no. And then he said, I just felt a big gust of cold wind next to me. I joked, Oh man, my dog must be here. And my mum looked at me and she told me she's been seeing movement in the hallway all day. That's when I told her about what I had seen last night too. I don't know if anyone has experience with this, pets specifically, but my mum and I have both seen spirits in the past, and I'm very much a believer. And it makes sense with my dog's sudden shift in energy that he might be confused about what happened to him. I would personally love for him to be haunting me. The last 2 days have been the absolute worst of my life. The pain is indescribable. And I hope, just as he acted as my shadow in life, I can continue to feel him around me after. Your narrator here. I am certain that your doggy is with you, even now. I need someone to explain what we saw. This happened around 2 a.m. today. I was dropping my girlfriend off home, and I live by the forest preserve. I mean, literally every corner of the street is covered leaving my apartment building. I was telling her just how I never seen deers here, and asked if they just don't come down to certain areas. And then I saw something on all fours on the street with the brightest, greenest eyes ever. At first I was like, that's a deer, and then immediately retracted and said, that's not a deer. The outline didn't even look like a deer either. It then got up off of all fours and went onto hind legs and had human-like hands. It happened so fast it seemed like it was in the middle of a road, to a patch of tall yellow grass so quick. While it was in the yellow grass is when it looked like it was standing, and the bright green eyes were looking directly into the car and on us. I couldn't believe my eyes. So I asked my girlfriend what she saw about 3 times, because she also was like, there's no way I saw that, and was scared to even say it out loud. When we had discussed what we saw, We both agreed it was human-like, the way it was crawling on all fours, like an animal, and then suddenly got up on its legs onto the street with such ease is really what's scaring us. Not sure if anyone can explain what we saw, but I'm not going to lie, just got scared to death and looking for any possible explanation of what it could have been. Your narrator here, I would bet that sounds to be like a skinwalker is my best bet there. Though I'm getting, this image comes to mind, if you guys seen it from the animation, I'm pretty sure it's from Adventure Time, but there's this stag and it gets up on its hind legs and it has its hooves out and it pulls off the hooves like they're gloves and there's like human hands animated underneath it and it's really creepy looking. So that's what I thought about when I heard your story. Thanks for the submission. Haunted hospital. When I was a nursing student, I lived in accommodation specifically for nursing and midwifery students. The building was actually on the hospital grounds, not far from the morgue. From the moment I moved in, the place had just this really strange vibe. And at first I told myself it was just because it was the first time I'd moved away from home. But over time, things started happening that I still really can't explain. Pretty quickly, I started having really intense nightmares and this constant feeling like I was being watched whenever I was in my room. Small weird things would happen all the time. I'd put something down on my bed, leave the room, and when I came back it would be somewhere else. I was certain I hadn't moved it. I also kept having a strange sense that something bad was about to happen. One time I had that feeling really strongly, and then the door suddenly slammed and caught my fingers. Things like that started happening more and more. At one point, I had a pet hamster that I'd rescued from another student who wasn't looking after it properly. Hamster was a bit erratic, would run against the sides of a tank a lot. One night, I woke up from hearing this growling sound in my room. It was coming from a hamster's cage. I know that sounds ridiculous, because hamsters don't growl, so I assumed it must have been a weird noise it was making. But honestly, it sounded like actual growling. Other times I'd be home alone and hear someone clattering around in the kitchen, as if someone was cooking or moving dishes. When I'd go to check, no one was there. The strangest thing that happened involved the oven. If I put food in the oven, sometimes the temperature would suddenly turn up full blast. I knew I hadn't touched it. At one point I mentioned it to 2 girls that I lived with, who I didn't really get along with, and they told me they'd been having the same problem and they had assumed I was doing it. But this had happened when they were out and I was home alone, so I know it wasn't them. The nightmares kept getting worse. Whenever I went home for the holidays and then came back to the flat, the minute I walked through the door, I'd get this horrible feeling of anxiety, like something wasn't right. During a placement in ICU, I mentioned some of this to my mentor. She was a middle-aged nurse who seemed very normal and not the type to make up weird stories. When I told her where I lived, she immediately knew the building. She said she had actually lived there herself years before, when the staff were allowed to stay there. She told me she once put in a complaint because she kept hearing someone running around in a flat above her late at night. When she reported it, the office told her nobody lived in that flat. Another time, she had a friend visiting. They were standing in the kitchen and both saw a woman dressed in white out of the corner of their eye. When they turned to look properly, she was gone. She said it looked like a woman wearing something like a white nightgown. The scariest experience that I had happened not long before I moved out. I was trying to sleep and eventually drifted off. I suddenly had this dream where an old woman in a hospital gown was standing over me. She looked almost demonic and was laughing in this really horrible way. In the dream, she said she was going to take something from me. I woke up immediately after that and I couldn't move. I had full sleep paralysis and that same feeling of dread, like something was still there in the room. After that, I slept on with the light every night. I slept with the light on, every night. I was supposed to leave the accommodation earlier, but I'd failed one unit and had to stay an extra few months. The whole time I was there, I had this horrible feeling that I'd never leave, like something in that place didn't want me to go. A haunting that I investigated and got down to the gritty truth. Reposting this here from another sub, because I really need to stress this to people. Hi, I hope everyone's week is going good so far. It is, thank you. I've gotten approval to share this post. I am a paranormal investigator. I'll also be the first one to tell you that I am skeptical of most claims. That being said, I do believe in the paranormal. I just analyze the facts before I draw any type of theory or conclusion. I was asked by a friend if I could look into something that was going on in her sister's girlfriend's house. Her girlfriend's sister's house, as they were having some strange experiences that seemed to be escalating. I agreed to visit. They told me what was going on. It was strange, that's for sure, I'll admit that. Definitely cause for some alarm. They had been in the house for a few weeks. It was the husband's grandfather's house that he had inherited. Neither of them had lived there prior. So, the two of them had both woken up at different points of the night over the course of a few nights. Both claim that they were in different clothes than when they went to sleep. Like, she woke up in her work scrubs once, and he had apparently woken up completely unclothed. And neither were in the same room that they slept in. That's concerning. They had to throw all their food out of their fridge, once due to waking up and finding it open. The wife was feeling off a couple of days, and could spend most of the time in bed. On one of those days, she fell asleep at 2 p.m, and didn't wake up until noon the next day. Her husband said that she only got up for bathroom breaks, which she didn't even remember. The husband was getting headaches randomly while in the house, but in specific rooms. One room in particular was the room that his grandfather had passed away in. He figured that if they were dealing with a haunting like that, they could call a local priest in to bless the home. This didn't do much good. Things kept happening, and they seemed to be getting creepier. One night, the wife went into the bathroom, and as she was washing makeup off of her face, she claims that her reflection was acting really bizarre. Her face wasn't hers. Her actions weren't matching up with that in the mirror to what she was doing. And just before leaving the bathroom, she saw a figure standing behind her, behind the reflection in the mirror. They both made plans to move back to their apartment quickly. The hassle didn't seem worth it, and they both reported feeling fine whenever they weren't in the home. After the reflection incident, they both apparently heard a woman's voice in the late hours of the night, and in the room that was to be their child's room, they heard a woman crying. They believed the blessing that they had on the house ended up antagonizing the spirit inside instead, and they were officially at a loss. So this is where I come into the story. I was in the house for about 10 minutes before I found what was likely the root cause of most of their problems. So, on the bottom floor, specifically in the living room, the windows were double windowed. This was also the room that the grandfather had passed away in. From what I could tell, the windows hadn't been opened in a very long time. Really caked up. I even was to scrape some glue or lament the silt, which led me to believe that these windows were never designed to be opened to begin with. I told them that this was likely carbon monoxide poisoning. They hadn't been getting enough ventilation. I keep a carbon monoxide detector in my car for these kinds of home investigations. Sure enough, it immediately went off after being plugged in. These things aren't expensive, and you can buy them at most hardware stores. Regardless, you should always have one anyway. I let them keep it. I still looked around the house, but didn't get any EMF or EVPs. I did get EMFs, but nothing that wasn't explainable with a quick look of the surroundings. The reflection bit, which was probably the creepiest when I heard it, was likely a result of the Caputio effect. I noticed a candle in her bathroom on the sink, and I'm pretty sure she was just hallucinating with the carbon monoxide. Had been staring at herself in the mirror for longer than she actually remembered, which triggered the distorted reflection. I believe that they were collaborating on the story while in their poisoned state, which is why they both believed it was a haunting. They missed and didn't remember the parts where they were doing everything and attributed it to otherworldly involvement. I love a good ghost story, but also love a good deductive reasoning encounter. This should be a cautionary account. Make sure to stay vigilant with things like this. Sometimes there are things that can be easily explained, and then there are also things that can't be explained at all. I wrote this on and off for a couple of hours, so let me know if you need clarification on anything. Also, I hope you'll have the amazing night and good week coming up. Much love and big hugs. It's actually really valid. I mean, that wasn't really a ghost story, so I get it, but it is a valid point. A lot of hauntings, 90% of hauntings can actually be explained by hypnagogic hallucination and sleep paralysis. That's where your body, to protect you from sleepwalking at night, which you would if you didn't have this, your body basically paralyzes you to keep you safe so you don't enact out your dreams and hurt yourself or fall down the stairs or whatever. But also, when you go to sleep, if you're disturbed early when you're going into the first REM state, you get a hypnagogic hallucination. It's basically the dream part of your brain firing and projecting into the real world, and it looks indistinguishable from the real world. So if you ever want to if you worry or you wonder, did I see a ghost or was it sleep paralysis, ask yourself, were you awake? Because yes, you'll feel fully awake when you see a hypnagogic hallucination. Did you see something super real in front of you while you were in your bed? And then did it gradually fade or disappear completely after 4 to 10 seconds? That's usually a pretty good sign that it's hypnagogic. And if you happen to wake up and see one, it's a hypnopompic hallucination. Just a little interesting fact there for you. And another point, some people will say, well, I didn't have sleep paralysis when I saw it, so it can't be sleep paralysis. You don't need to have sleep paralysis in order to have a hypnagogic or pompic hallucination. True story. With that said, one of the other most explainable causes for hauntings, exactly what this chap just said in the story, is carbon monoxide poisoning, which can kill you, by the way, very, very easily while you're sleeping. You won't even know. It's like a painless death. So always make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector in your home. I cannot stress how important it is, and it could save your life. Anyway, let's get back into these ghost stories. Has anyone lived in a haunted house? Here's my story. It's long, but I hope you enjoy it. So I live with my stepmom, dad, little sister, and brother. There's always been weird, unexplainable noises, shadows, and a feeling of being watched here. But this takes the cake. It all started with just random noises and weird sounds that progressively got worse. The first signs were shadows that you catch with the side of your eye, and no one being there. The weirder things, like hearing something climb up my bunk bed ladder and then my bed bouncing like someone had just hopped in. But today, when I got off work, there was only my little brother's truck at home. We have a loud stereo in our room, and we jam it loud when no one else is home. Anyway, he was the only one there, or so I thought. So I get off work and see his truck, and I think, I guess he's home. But he wasn't. When I get close to the house, I could hear the stereo real loud, but couldn't make out the song. When I touched the door to open it, I could feel the door rattling at the base. As soon as I unlocked the door and opened it, it was dead silent, and our room door was open. so I'm scared as fuck at this point. I slowly walk into our room and standing in the doorway. There was no one in there. I laugh and say, "Bro, this isn't funny, where are you?" There was no answer, just silence. I then went to step in my room, and right when my foot picked up the door, it slammed the shit out of me, pushing me into my room and onto the floor. I got up real fast, opened the door, and no one was there. I looked everywhere in the house, and there was no human in there. So I called my brother and asked, "Where the fuck are you hiding?" He says, "What are you talking about? I'm at church. I rode with Mum." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." Mind you, I hate church, no offense. I'm still thinking when I get there he's still going to be at home hiding, but nope. When I get there I found him, and he could tell that I was scared. He said, "What happened? I've never seen you like this." I told him, and he got white as a sheet, pun intended. And then he said, "Last night I heard the sound while you were asleep. I went to check it out and I saw a little girl in the living room watching TV, but was just fuzz. When she saw me, she smiled really creepy and then ran through the wall and disappeared. So now I have no idea what to do every time I'm in the house. Everyone knows it's haunted, but it's a big house and we got it for cheap, so we can't move. Anyway, that's my story of today. I know it was a long one, but I hope it entertained you because it scares the shit out of me." A North Carolina ghost story. Hello, I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Every year my church, the Moravians, put on a big Christmas experience for people in a building in Old Salem called the Single Brothers House. This house predates the American Revolution and therefore has a ton of stories. But the main one is a little red man. His name was Andreas, and he died while dogging out the cellar when the walls collapsed on him. I work in said cellar. First of all, he loves turning off and on our CD player that plays hymns down there. Sometimes he stops if you ask him, but sometimes if you ask, he does it more. Second, starting this year, anytime someone asked me about him, the star we have hung up down there turned off. I had our building person come look and she couldn't explain why it was happening, but as long as no one asked me about him, it would stay on. He loves knocking on the walls down there, especially when I am alone. He plays more jokes than anything, and he still knows how to creep people out. The scariest thing that has ever happened to me happened this year though. The room has a large scene of Old Salem set up throughout that we bring people down there to see it. Just as you go in, on the right, you will see a large barn door with an oval top. That door leads to the deepest part, which is where he died. I was waiting for the person who was there before me to wrap up, and so I stepped over to the door and waited. I looked behind me, and I swear to all that is holy, I saw a hand holding on to the top of that door. I turned back around, was just going to ignore it, when a little kid asked me, "Who was that man?" Long story short, if you ever want to piss your pants, go to the Single Brothers House cellar in Salem, Winston. I had my first unexplainable paranormal experience 3 months ago and wonder if any of you have experienced something similar. In October, my family and I did a 3-hour tour of the Missouri State Penitentiary. For those who don't know, it is a prison that closed in 2004 and is now a history/paranormal tourist attraction. This was my 3rd time doing the night tour, and, after having not seen or felt anything during the 2 visits prior, I encountered something that shocked me to my core, and I still can't explain it as anything other than paranormal. In the general population building, there is the main floor and 3 floors above. The middle one is open with several cells lining the walls all the way up. Just a standard prison setup. Our group was exploring, everyone walking around and going in and out of cells. I separated from my family to explore cell 11 on the bottom floor because there was no crowd, and it's my lucky number. I didn't realize until entering that a woman in our tour group was already in there, sitting on a large chair straight back against the wall. She was still and quiet, and had her ghost device, not sure what it was, but she and her husband were carrying one around the entire time, blinking green. Oh, it's probably an EMF meter. So I assumed she was trying to record something, and I quickly apologized and walked out. I lingered awkwardly to the right of the cell for a few seconds, and then started walking back towards the middle of the floor to wait for my family. I gave cell 11 one last glance, and then stopped in my tracks after finding it empty. The woman was suddenly nowhere in sight. I went in, looked all around. I even felt the seat for a sign of warmth, and it was ice cold. At this point, I started convincing myself that this was impossible, and that this lady must be a stealth master, because I was so shocked. I keep walking towards the middle, and there she comes, down the stairs and headed towards the middle on the opposite side. I panicked and asked her for confirmation that she was just sitting in cell 11, so that I could stop feeling crazy as I was. She looked about as panicked as I felt when she told me no. She had been on the upper floors for the last 20 minutes. We had a brief, shared moment of terror/confusion, and then avoided each other for the rest of the tour. I couldn't stop shaking for an hour, and I still can't get it out of my mind. I did some Googling as soon as I got to my car to leave, and I found out about doppelgangers. I think that is what I experienced. It's too dead on. What do you think? Have you experienced anything like that? How did it make you feel? It turned me from a skeptic to a believer quick. I can tell you that. There seems to be a lot of, and I don't know if it's a synchronicity, it's your narrator here talking for this part, but the kitten is here. But I have noticed a lot of doppelganger stories recently, and I've talked about a couple on my previous podcasts where I've experienced it. Mostly not that I experienced it, but other people will hear my voice calling to them, but I won't be there, and that's happened to a couple of different people. My friend is probably listening to this, one of my best friends in the whole world. He lives in Georgia, and I believe that recently he had a doppelganger experience. He was on his family's farmland. When I say farmland, I mean they have tons of acres. This isn't like a small property, it's like very, very large. So they have different properties on the different parts of the acre, and one of them is like a farmhouse. And he went out there to take care of some of the animals they have, basically. And when he does this, he usually goes out by himself. He's usually like alone. He'll sometimes even drive like an hour between properties to go do this. But he's out there, and from the forest, and it's dark, mind you, it's like nighttime, dead of night. He hears his mother call his name, saying, "Hey," his name, "come over here." And he's really shocked. Because one, it's not something his mum would really ever be doing. Why would she be standing out in the middle of the woods in the dark, calling for him? And so then he calls his mother on his cell phone, and she picks up, and she's not even there on the property. She's far away. And you can imagine how he felt in that moment. Like when he told me his story, the hairs went up on the back of my neck, and I was like, oh, that had to be a doppelganger. Using your mother's voice to try and convince you, to lure you to come out into the forest. And I often wonder, like after this he left the scene, he got in the car and left and phoned me and told me about it. But like I often wonder, and this is something maybe in the comments you guys can help me with, why do you think it is these doppelgangers? They must know us well because they usually imitate people we know or love. So they must intimately know details about our lives. But why do they choose people we know and love? Is it to lure us out? What would happen if you actually go out into the forest? Anyway, on that note, we've reached our 30-minute mark. If you're still with me and not asleep, thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you have sweet dreams and no nightmares. Without further ado, good night and take care.